This is the story of how my boyfriend decided he was not an outdoorsy type of person. Let me take you back. My boyfriend, sweet as he may be, went on a small camping trip with one of his close friends, Matt. And after a successful 2 days of camping and hiking, which he loved, he impressed upon me the importance of getting with nature and going out and exploring the wilderness, something which I had never done before. It didn't really interest me all that much. Sure, parks are nice, but spending nights out in the wilderness certainly wasn't something that sounded that appealing to me. But he persisted, and so around Valentine's Day weekend, he arranged everything. He got the gear off his friend, and we were going to spend the weekend out in the sticks. Honestly, our day didn't go according to plan. As we began making our way there, we ended up getting lost, as it was in an area that had very little signal, and if you didn't know where you're going, getting lost was only too easy. It took about an extra hour until we managed to find the right road, and it was already past midday at this point. We stopped in a little town, had food, and then finally made our way towards our destination. Now, I should probably point out that being February, it gets dark quite quickly. And that being the case, it was already starting to get dark. So, my boyfriend, who roughly remembers where he had camped with his friend, insists that we must follow the trail to get to this amazing spot, a lovely place to wake up. We gather all the gear and walk in the dusk towards our destination. I tried to be optimistic for his sake. I wasn't having a great time because walking in near darkness at this point with only a flashlight to guide us wasn't exactly my idea of fun, but tried to be optimistic in the hopes that I would be wrong. As we carried on walking, my boyfriend inevitably got lost, and after about half an hour of looking for the spot he had planned on, we settled on just hunkering down wherever we could find a good space, which didn't take all that long. But now we didn't know where we were, or he for that matter. We adventured far off the trail in the hopes to find the location his friend had promised him in the dark. And although we didn't feel super great, we figured that come light, we should be able to find our way back. So we set up our tent with much difficulty given the darkness and our one flashlight, and eventually had a little bite to eat before falling asleep. I, however, found it hard to get to sleep. My boyfriend seemingly just put himself in his sleeping bag and passed out no problemo. I, on the other hand, had never been outside before when I needed to sleep. I was always in the quiet of my room, and hearing all the outside noises while I was trying to sleep. Every time my boyfriend moved, it made a rustle on the ground from the fallen leaves. It bothered me, and I found it very hard to get comfortable and fall asleep because of it. So I lie there awake, staring at the darkness, hoping that eventually sleep would come for me. I don't know how much time passed. I was in and out of consciousness. It felt like every noise woke me. But suddenly I heard what was unmistakably footsteps in the distance. My ears perked up, and I lie there listening, now more awake than ever. There were people, but I couldn't see any flashlights as they would be very visible through the canvas of the tent. As I listened, I could hear two men talking. They sounded a bit drunk, to be fair. One of them I heard fall over, and they were definitely approaching our direction. Suddenly, I saw what appeared to be the beam of a flashlight shine over and not directly touch our tent, but it was clear they'd seen us, as one man started shushing his friend. They started going shh 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 and talking in hushed tones. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I was fairly sure that it was something to do with ambushing our tent, or at least looting it. At this point, I just about crapped a brick. I felt true fear, the likes of which I don't think I'd ever felt in my life, surge through me. Here were people with bad intentions, and I was out here in the dark, basically alone because my boyfriend sleeps like a log, with my only protection being a flashlight, while these two men approach us both to do who knows what with who knows what, and I really didn't want to find out. I frantically look around while trying to make as minimal noise as possible. Do I have any form, any way to defend myself? We didn't bring anything. No mace, no weapon, no knife, nothing. We decided to pack light, and it being quite rural, we didn't think anything bad would happen, least of all animals, as there aren't any dangerous animals where we live. Humans never came into the equation, which was our mistake. I grabbed my power bank, which is heavy and probably the only thing that's heavy enough to hurt if it hits someone on the head, and I grabbed it in my hand like the brick it is, and waited as I moved silently towards the flap of the tent in case someone stuck their head in. I've realized that if they shined their flashlight, they'd be able to see exactly where I was in the tent, and that concerned me. But figured if that were to pass, I'd just lie down as quick as I could in the hopes to remain unspotted. And there I waited, as the shuffling feet drew ever closer in the silence of the forest. The men had now reached the tent, shushing each other and walking around it slowly. Thankfully, they didn't shine the flashlight into the tent, probably because they wanted to check to see if anyone was in there and not wake them, in case we were the ones who were going to prove dangerous. As I waited, anxiety and anticipation flooding every neuron of my brain and every cell of my being, filling me with pure primal dread, did I hear the sound of the zipper slowly come undone. I waited in the darkness for anyone to push their head through to check if we were there. And right as a solitary head started making its way through the zipper, I smashed him in the head with the power bank. A sound emanated, a crunch, the likes of which I could have never anticipated either. I smacked him directly on the nose with as much force as my adrenaline-fueled hand could muster, and the scream that erupted from this man was more like a roar as he fell backwards and started yelling at his friend to get the hell out of there. I looked down at my power bank, and despite the fact it was a moonless night and I could barely see anything, I could feel the blood on it and could almost taste it in the air. The men screamed and ran, almost like we'd assaulted them, and my boyfriend, obviously woken from the commotion, asked what the hell happened. When he realized what happened, we started dismantling the tent and told ourselves it was time to leave. Once he'd done that and everything had been packed away, it was still dark, and we used our flashlight to try and find where we were going, but the problem still persisted. We had absolutely no clue. We stood there in the dark, waiting, wondering what the hell our next move should be. So, in the little clearing that we'd found, we moved over to near some trees, put our bags behind them, and tried to be as hidden as possible, and just lied together down in the grass, waiting for the sun to shine so that we could make our exit quickly. As we waited in the darkness, we heard footsteps farther and further away. We were worried that they would return, but they never did. When the first rays of dawn started arriving, we looked around and made our way to try and find where we'd come from. When we got back through our little clearing, we noticed a startling amount of blood just on the floor where our tent was, and a clear trail. I assumed that these people, if they were walking around in the woods in the middle of the night, probably had some inkling where to go, and following a trail of blood. And just to paint the proper picture, it wasn't a huge flowing trail, it was just the occasional droplet by that point. We managed to find our way eventually to the path. It took us twice as long to leave as it did when we arrived, but I was grateful nonetheless to have gone. The end of our camping saga, filled with misfortune. I suppose it just wasn't meant to be. And with that, I conclude the story. My boyfriend and I made it home safely and decided it would probably be best to never go camping again, which to this day we haven't done. Stay safe out there. And to anyone wandering the woods in the middle of the night, hoping to take advantage or rob anyone while camping, let's not meet.